What is up, Notre Dame fans? I'm Tyler Horka. That's Patrick Engel, and we just watched an entire Notre Dame spring football practice. We weren't supposed to, so that was a little pleasant surprise. Notre Dame, I guess it was Coach Marcus Freeman that actually said, hey, these guys are out here. Let's let them watch the whole thing. So that was pretty cool. Saw a lot of good things, some bad things. It was a typical spring practice, the good and the bad. We'll start with the latter, I suppose. It was another shaky day of quarterback play. Sam Hartman mainly running with the twos. It was Tyler Buchner, the incumbent junior, who got a lot of the reps with the starters, a lot of the first team reps. So that was interesting right off the bat. And then, look, we're not privy to seeing all of these practices. This was the fourth time that we were viewing any part of practice, and
only the second 11 on 11, yeah.
And only the second time that we got to see an entire practice. So we don't know exactly what's going on, the ins and outs of everyday practice. But from what we have seen, I thought Tyler Buchner was the better quarterback today. What did you see?
I saw the same, and granted, yeah, all the caveats apply of yes, this is spring practice, and there were definitely some periods where Notre Dame's defense was in a lot of its blitz packages and nickel packages and really throwing a lot of pressure at guys. I think there was an 8-man blitz on Hartman at one point. So worth pointing out, and yes, absolutely him with the second team. But yeah, I thought Buchner outplayed him. And then when you got to the red zone drills there where it wasn't as fancy blitz packages or wasn't loads of pressure in his face, I thought you saw Buchner complete a few more passes, lead a touchdown drive there first. Just looked a little more comfortable. And look, that's not to say that this portends anything of someone's going to be great, someone's going to struggle, some competition that's, more up for grabs than it might have been. Like, no, not to go there after whatever this is, spring practice 10, but that's just what happened. Like, it is, and you don't want to tell you otherwise or anything. But, yeah, I thought Hartman's still just a little off in terms of seeing him miss throws that you've seen him make, especially in that red zone where you watched all of his games from last year. I've seen enough of his highlights and games from his time at Wake Forest to know that he's very good at throwing the back shoulder ball. A few of those just not quite there today. So my takeaway from this was that Tyler Buchner will not make it easy on Sam Hartman and isn't, going away. But to leave it at that of like, this isn't out here to say he's going to start or this is some battle that's going to go up until the week before Navy or that some struggles here in April are going to doom Hartman or whatever. But that was what happened today as we sit here on April 12th.
Yeah, and just to get back to your point about the throws that he was missing, some of these guys were open, and you have seen him hit those throws at Wake Forest. So if they didn't hit in a couple spring practices, kind of like Patrick said, I wouldn't be worried that they're never going to hit on Saturdays in the fall because he saw them. He made the right throws, and a lot of it had to do with pressure, I would say. Patrick is right, and this was probably the defense's blitz day. I would go beyond saying it was just a couple blitz periods. They were active in getting after the quarterback. That's not to say that the Notre Dame offensive line looked bad. They were just up against it. Like Patrick said, there was an 8-man rush at one point. A lot of times there were 6-man rushes, and when you have an extra rusher, they're probably going to get to the quarterback and kind of force a throw that you wouldn't normally see when protection holds up. So I guess we'll get to some housekeeping things. Jadarian Price was actually in a shell today, so he had his jersey on. He was pulling a sled with weights stacked on them, as you do, wrap the bungee cord or whatever it is around your waist, get going. That's probably really good news for someone that just had an Achilles injury less than a year ago. He's able to physically move weight. What are some of the other things? Who are some of the other guys that you saw that were either hampered or out? I guess Braylon James was wearing a red non-contact jersey, but he pretty much went through every single period of practice, and it looked like he was fine. So that's probably precautionary more than anything. Injuries, anything you noticed personnel-wise?
Yeah, Jalen Sneed, Javonte Jean-Baptiste weren't out there in 11 on 11 or 7 on 7, but those guys were in uniform. Same with Logan Diggs, in uniform, wasn't out there as part of 7 on 7. Ben Minnick, Prince Colley, not dressed out there for it, so we'll see what's up there. We get to talk with both coordinators and Marcus Freeman again on Saturday, when I imagine we'll learn more by then at the latest on what the deal is with especially those guys who weren't in uniform today. But Cam Hart, Thomas Harper still held out, but we saw Harper in held out of full contact work, I should say. But today wasn't full tackling, so we saw Harper in one of those red non-contact pennies, like over his regular jersey, getting a little bit more run than the last time we were able to see the defense in 11 on 11 there. So you saw him play a little bit of nickel when they were in kind of defense-only periods, and then some safety when they were in 11 on 11, 7 on 7, just like we figured the plan would be all along with him, and what Chris O'Leary told us when he spoke with reporters last week of he would be kind of in that help out at both role. The example I've used for a while and even asked O'Leary about that, he kind of said, yeah, this was right. It was Sean Crawford in 2020 where you saw him start at safety, play there, especially on early downs, and then kind of move into that nickel spot in a lot of those sub packages there and on third down. So that's kind of the role I imagine we'll see him in when he's back on the field fully healthy in August. Probably won't see him in the spring game, given that they're still trying to be careful there with the shoulder surgery, and that the spring game obviously is when they will allow tackling.
So because the quarterbacks had another one of those days where they had guys in their face and the throws were just, for the most part, a little bit off. We mentioned that Tyler Buchner completed a few. There really weren't any offensive standouts, skill players-wise. Holden Stays caught a touchdown from Tyler Buchner on a really nice little read to the left. It was almost an RPO where Buchner pulls it, runs to his right, dumps it off to Holden Stays, who gets the corner and takes it in the right edge there for a touchdown. He had another play right before that gained a first down on the same exact play. So he had a couple nice catches. I thought Mitchell Evans had a couple nice catches, kind of in that same intermediary range where they're not going downfield by any means, but if you're looking for sure-handed guys between the sticks, throw it to those two. So that was good to see. Offense, defense, Patrick, who did you think stood out?
Yeah, Audric Estime can still pass block. He was active in those blitz periods where there was a couple times maybe there was some pressure in face. There was a ball Hartman threw away where he picked up a blitzer but still allowed some pressure. But that's something you don't see too much from him and didn't see a lot more than when he recognized where the blitz was coming from, picked it up, and just redirected the guy or stonewalled him. Not really a surprise there that he was Notre Dame's best pass blocking back, as I think he was last year.
Yeah.
But you're continuing to see that. Jaden Greathouse, a few nice plays in 7-on-7, even down the field. And then defense, I thought a good day for the linebackers as a whole, the senior trio especially. J.D. Bertrand, saw him with a nice pass breakup there on Jabrian Payne in coverage on a fourth down. Jack Kaiser, just his usual reliable self in kind of coverage and zone coverage over the middle there, where he just kind of wipes out those crossers and picks those guys up like we've seen him do for now, three years since he's been in the rotation. Good day for Jaden Mickey in the sense of when he made some nice plays and was able to hang in coverage on some guys, but when we were talking about him last spring, it was as much about this guy is just really confident in his abilities and belongs out there, and heard him wasn't afraid to talk a little mess and kind of with some swagger out there. And I thought you saw that today, which was just good to see after a season where he didn't necessarily lose the staff's trust because he still played, I believe it was 248 snaps, but one where he took some lumps, had some freshman moments, had some ups and downs, but you're seeing him out there with the first team defense a lot now that Cam Hart's still not in 11 on 11, and seeing that kind of confident swag persona there, and just swagger filled day where he was kind of talking trash after a couple incompletions, and the kind of thing you want to see out of him, because that's really kind of how he plays the game, and still kind of feeling good about where he's at heading into year two.
Yeah, you mentioned Bertrand, and I'll just kind of piggyback off of that. Mitch Evans kind of got the best of him early on a little dig hitch routes, kind of option routes, really. The tight end goes a few yards downfield and says, all right, I'm either going to break this in or cut it out. He cut it out a couple times, and Bertrand was just lost a step, and Evans was able to catch it. You saw Evans try to do that a couple times later in the practice, and Bertrand was all over it. So that's just a graduate student linebacker saying, okay, you got me a couple times, you're not going to get me again. I think you like to see that because that's what happens throughout the course of a game. A player who's that old, has been through it that much, you'd like to see that happen, and it did. And I'll just finish the way that we started, circling back to the quarterbacks. It wasn't all bad. Sam Hartman actually had one of those throws that we were talking about earlier that he makes in games to Chris Tyree, who was lined up on the right side of the field, kind of across the entire end of the field, working toward the left sideline. And there was pressure again in Sam Hartman's face, and he kind of took a couple steps back, and it was just it It was complete trust in the route, trust in the play, where he throws it to the left sideline and Chris Tyree makes the catch for probably what would have been 12 to 15 yards in an actual game. So that was his best throw of the day. Tyler Buchner had a few throws that were a little bit overthrown, so I don't think he ever made like the flashy splash throw in 7-on-7 or 11-on-11, but I think he attempted more downfield than Sam Hartman did, especially early on. So it was good to see his confidence in saying, hey, I have a guy who has really made a name for himself in college football by throwing the ball downfield. I'm going to show that I can do that too. So, again, wasn't all bad. A lot of incompletions, but if you're going to have incompletions, you might as well have them happen in the spring. And if it means that the defense is playing pretty well too, so be it. But yeah, that's pretty much all we've got from today, unless you've got anything else, Patrick.
No, like I that same throw to Tyree, like you mentioned, was kind of the one of like, all right, it's that, like that's what it's supposed to look like and what he has done, and like that's a 45-game starter and the guy who's thrown more touchdowns in ACC history than anybody. And like you said, even in some of the incompletions, like still some plays where you notice like he's processing it right, he's navigating the pocket, dodging pressure a little bit, and just like did everything right, but put the throw exactly where you've seen him put it a lot in his career.
Yeah, and I'm just curious how much of it is him not being on the same page with some of these wideouts, because the correlation of the misses was pretty much consistent throughout, in that I don't think he ever really missed anything short. He was missing everything long. So if he just dials it back a touch and says, okay, this is what I'm working with personnel-wise and who I'm throwing it to, I think you'll see more of those start to connect. But the next chance for us to see that is the Blue Gold game right here behind us at Notre Dame Stadium on April 22nd. We'll see Buchner, we'll see Hartman, we'll see all the guys that we just talked about. Until then, I'm Tyler Horka, that's Patrick Engel, and we'll catch you next time.